alarm! To arms! They are here!
Good evening, and welcome to the Watchmen'S Report. Tonight, as always, we're joined by Jason Foreman. We've also got Robert Landon and Richard McDonald on for tonight's show. And this is, I think Jason titled this one, the Unchained episode of the Watchmen'S Report. So I don't know exactly what that entails, but it's sure to be interesting, I'm sure. I think it has something to do with national news topics. We've got this huge war that's brewing over in Iran and a number of other things that I think that the boys want to talk about tonight. So where do you guys want to start? You want to start with Iran? Richard, I think you had another topic that you wanted to bring up. Robert, I think you had another topic. I mean, it's just a smorgasbord of chaos here.
Yeah, it is.
So you tell me, guys. Somebody start. Richard, how about you, buddy? Let's have you start. Richard, are you alive?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're froze, man.
Oh.
All right, Robert, you start.
I think his internet's hooked up to like the Iranian network, so
Probably is. They're probably trying to take his ass out.
hey, the Ayatollah was watching his comments online.
Hey, there he is.
Go ahead, Rich.
The fatwa is over.
I switched back to
Go
the
ahead, Richard.
Elon Musk sponsored internet here. Can you hear me?
Your sound's
Not
real
very
bad.
I'll just
Put
listen
some
for a moment then.
tinfoil on the old wire.
Go ahead, I'll listen.
All right. Go. Are you better? You look better.
Can you hear me?
No. Okay. Robert, go. Start. Talk about something. We're losing the audience here.
Hey, so this whole Iran thing, one of the things I want to talk about is, this is my opinion. I really don't think it's going to explode into World War III. That's the first thing I want to get out there, because I see a lot of those comments flying around on all these different news sites, and people claiming we're going to go into World War III. And let's also not forget too, Obama bombed like Africa and the Middle East with like 30,000 bombs during his tenure. I mean, like something insane. I'm pretty sure he bombed the Middle East more than even George Bush, and George Bush is the one that took us over there to begin with. So I think that it's not going to end up into World War III. We're going to keep it contained. In fact, Trump was saying that it's going to be done here in like a week or two. I think they're wanting to pull out within that time frame. Who knows? We'll see. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this is going to turn into a long-term war? Do you think we're going to be there for just a couple weeks, maybe a month or two? What's everyone else's thoughts on that? I kind of believe him right now. I think he knows midterms are coming up. You saw the whole Kristi Noem thing. He had to get rid of her because he was getting heat for her. So I don't know what y'all think about that.
Richard, are you capable of communication now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
It's a miracle.
I'm with Robert on this as far as duration. I think it's going to be really strategic. If you look at the pattern, they're sending in the B-52s now, so they've already overcome all the air defenses. I think, Iran's in a state of desperation. They're just lobbing what they can get off the ground. They know their days are numbered. Their Navy's, decapitated. It can't last much longer unless it's an occupation, which I think is a really bad move, and I don't think it's the objective.
So what comes after? I mean, do we know? Was there any thought put into, okay, we're going to go in here and really blow a lot of shit up, and kill a lot of people that Israel doesn't like, what comes after? If it's not boots on the ground, which would be the biggest mistake in all of mankind, and not that our politicians have made very good decisions when it comes to occupying foreign countries. Iraq and Afghanistan being example A and example B. So Richard, Robert, you guys are proponents of this endeavor. So what comes next?
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rich. Go ahead, buddy. We might not get you another 30 seconds. Your internet might cut out.
Yeah, it's true. I was just going to say that I think that we can kind of look to Venezuela for the model. I don't think the goal is occupation or necessarily even full regime change. I think it's going to be geared towards liberation, and then probably bringing in more of the pro-Western side of, because there's obviously multiple factions inside that country that are operating already in resistant movements. We've had, uprisings in recent years. So there's already the groundwork there for, secession of the government. I think the goal is to get the radical Islamists out of the country, and then kind of co-opt it, because right now Iran is co-opted by the Chinese. They're in their axis, and I think the goal, same goal with Venezuela, pull them out of that axis and into the Western axis, because everybody they're surrounded by, even the other Islamic nations there, are all Western allies for the most part.
If there's one thing that I want to see accomplished by this, I hope in next year that there are drag queen story hours in Tehran libraries. That's what it's all about. When you talk about westernizing these nations, we have to bring our values into these conservative countries like Iran. So I want to see drag queen story hours across.
Oh Lord.
Ironically, we're trying to westernize them as we become easternized. We're letting all the commies come in here and tear down our country while we're, nation building across the globe.
Jay, do you have any comments here, buddy?
Coming from a pretty hardcore military family with, brothers and such, and various armed forces in the dance studio clan, Iran's list of bullshit over the past 40 years is long and distinguished, including, like Rich just mentioned, their co-ops with the Chinese and the narco terrorists and all those morons. They started launching missiles at their neighbors as their death throes. There's that. So that drives a nail in the coffin for me. What's going to happen if they get nuclear weapons? They're going to launch those motherfuckers at the people next to them too. And they're going to launch them over here if they can get them here. He's out of control, and they're all crazy. Like, that regime is out of control. And this whole operation, this Epic Fury thing, they precision killed, 50 of their leaders?
200.
Yeah. So, right off the bat, it was like that. And they had extinguished like 50 of them right off the bat. So this has a very well-planned intelligence operation written all over it, and intelligence wins wars. So I have no doubt that when the intelligence commanders and the Joint Chiefs and President Trump are saying that they can end this pretty quick as far as decapitating the snake, so to speak, I think that they're definitely being truthful. As far as the aftermath, I'm not political enough to understand that fully, so I won't speak on that. But I do know that that regime is out of control. They've been proven to be in all kinds of shady dealings, from weapons to, they're trying to get nuclear weapons, narco terrorism, supplying precursors into Mexico, knowing damn well that they're going to cross the border into the United States. So get rid of them, get them out of there, man, before they become a real serious problem.
It's 3 against 1, folks. I don't know what I'm going to do here, but all I can say about that, Jay and Richard and Landon, is do we really think that if they did get nuclear capability, that they're just going to just start lobbing. I get tired of that argument. It's the same shit that we use for anybody that we want to take out for any reason whatsoever. Is we vilify them and we say, oh, if we don't do something about this, they're going to conquer the world and they're going to destroy everybody.
Yeah.
Mankind as we know it will cease to exist if Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, the boogeyman tactic, right?
Exactly. It's all bullshit. It's all a lie. And you look at how many countries have nuclear weapons and nothing said about them. And largely it's because we talked about this the last time, I think last week when we had one of our national news topics, and I brought up Cuba. And, are we going to go in there and give it the Venezuela treatment or overthrow it or whatever? It does, as I said that night, and as Richard just said, it has to do with trying to preserve the supremacy of the U.S. dollar as the reserve, global reserve currency. And there is a substantial threat that has been underway here over the last couple of years, in particular, with from the BRICS countries. So BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and it's expanded substantially. Pretty much all of the global South, as they refer to themselves, where they actually produce things. If you look at the economy of the United States, its gross domestic product, roughly 75% of that is consumption based. And how do we get to be the world's consumers? Well, because the dollar is the global reserve currency. Talked about that during the last episode, but that is a crucial importance if you're wanting to understand geopolitics. And the other aspect of geopolitics is that little country that was formed in 1948, known as the State of Israel. So the question here is whether or not us expending our wealth, our weapons, our blood of our men and women in uniform, is that serving the American interest, your interest, my interest, the American people? Or is it serving, first and foremost, the interests of a bunch of corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C., a bunch of bankers in New York City, or their friends over in Tel Aviv? Valid question, is it not, Richard?
Yeah. Motive is very important. I agree.
Robert?
Yeah, I was going to follow up with that too. I'm definitely like anti dual citizenship. I definitely don't think, some of these guys are getting too close to offices with dual citizenship. I don't like the thought of that. I know there is people on the far right that they like that because they are so pro-Israel. And I'm not anti-Israel. You guys know we've had these conversations. I'm not anti-Israel. I lean a little more pro-Israel because they are an ally, but I'm not so far to where I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable if somebody wants to be a congressman and also be an Israeli citizen. I think you can't have dual loyalties. I think you got to be loyal to the United States of America first and foremost. So I know that's kind of like a little bit of a side thing there, but I've been seeing a lot of that chatter on these online forums where that is a big argument right now. And I also want to address too, I think there's people who think this is some sort of holy war. There's people saying that we're using Christianity to justify this war. And that there's also, I don't know if you all saw those reports, Fox News even covered it, where there was some sort of commissioned officer in the military that was telling his troops that this was all in God's plan and God's design, and this is going to usher in Armageddon. And maybe that's true. There are some people out there that are kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. They want to bring that stuff faster than it should. And so, I don't think this is a holy war. I really think that this is just Trump. We all know Trump. He's got an ego, right? He didn't make this name for himself without that ego. But he has such an ego that I think he wants to be so dominating and so peaceful at the same time. Like, I really think he wants the Nobel Peace Prize, as ironic as that sounds. And I think he thinks he's going to get there by, dominating these other countries. But it's also in the strategic interest that the United States have. Like recently we announced that there's this like global conference with our military, or not a global conference, but a Western Hemisphere conference with our generals and all the generals in Central and South America. He's really like doubling down on American hegemony here in the Western Hemisphere. So I just think that this whole Iran thing it's preemptive. I think that he wants to shake things up because it's really going to set back China. Did you guys see the announcement that China was pulling back some of their exports on oil because of everything that's going on? So, this is really going to affect China's economy too, because they rely on Iranian oil and Venezuelan oil.
Can I follow up for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Go right ahead.
So going back to the first point you made, which was about the far right idea of, first of all, the far right is kind of a very vague concept. That is really just neo-Marxist terminology to discriminate against people who counter their narrative. But how can we have a far right that comprises of people who are both Zionists or neo-Nazis? It's illogical first. And those people will say that same point, that if they'll claim neo-Nazis are far right and they'll claim that Zionists are far right. Well, those two groups are really diametrically opposed. So that's a nonsensical point anyway. Going back to Iran's efforts in the world, I just looked up a few facts before we came on here. So, for example, when we talk about whether this is a conflict that's really between a proxy war of the United States by Israel against Iran, which is one position of understanding, or the other, which is kind of the more global geopolitical perspective. So Iran has sold Russia like $9 billion in arms they've used in Ukraine. Almost exclusively, their suicide drones are. Iran has been exporting suicide drones not only to Russia to use in that theater, but they've exported them to all the terrorist organizations in the Middle East. So they're really the group that has been growing that kind of segment of warfare. But then if you look at their oil exports, 90% of their oil goes to China, which is about 13% of their imports. Same thing with Venezuela. 75-80% of their oil goes to China, but that's only 4 or 5% of their imports. So you can see with just one move, China's in a critical position now.
Yeah.
And their ally Russia is in a critical position. They're not getting arms from Iran, and now the flow of fuel for the war machine is stopped. So, to me, this is a very big geopolitical picture of kind of the Western versus, I would say, I don't really call them, I guess the Chi-Com axis is the best way to describe them today, but to me, it's a very broad picture. So those are the 2 points after following up on what Robert said.
But Richard, who created this threat in China?
Muhammad.
No, I'm talking China. Who created this threat? During the 1960s, during
I would blame Nixon
the
myself.
Revolution with Mao Zedong, they were an archaic, backwards country. Millions died. Many from starvation. If you know the dog breed, the Shar Pei, the wrinkly dog, almost went extinct in the 1960s because it's Chinese dog breed, and they were eating anything they could, including every dog, rat, what have you, in order to try to survive. And they actually snuck out, I think, a small number of those dogs into the West, and that's why they were able to be spared. That's how bad it was. And then our own politicians, starting with Richard Nixon, open up China. We had a complete embargo on communist China prior to Nixon going there, visiting it, and then opening up trade. And then, of course, when they allowed under Clinton China to join the WTO, and what happened as a result? All of these American companies relocated to China for cheap labor to exploit that market. Meanwhile, all of our industrial might and productive capability died. So it really annoys me when people, and it's reality. I mean, we live in 2026. It's not 1969. So I get that. But here we are playing this geopolitical war game, essentially, when in reality, the best thing that we could do for the people of this country is to reenact the policies domestically that made us great before they screwed us over with big government, before they screwed us over and destroyed the desire for people to achieve and to maximize their potential by implementing the welfare state, before all of our industrial might was shipped overseas to China. But no, let's keep all that, but let's go to war and blow up everybody, in order to try to maintain it. I don't know. Everything is just fake. We live in a fake world, fake and not heterosexual world. So let's just head forward. I want all of our bombers to be emblazoned with the rainbow flag. You know how in WW2 they used to put the pinup girls on the noses. I want to see a pinup tranny on every single bomber that's flying over Iran. That's what we're about.
So Cody, you're saying it's a gay world?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't know. Jay, what do you think about that, man?
I mean, I like the tranny
You like
planes.
the
I think
nose,
that might, I like that.
that
That
idea?
might scare them. It might scare them into submission. That'd freak them out. They'd run for the hills.
Could you imagine being a conservative Muslim man and you're getting blown up by a plane that's like a tranny plane?
You could shape the missiles and bombs in such a way that it'd also be terrifying.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna go into that.
Let's make them like
It's a falling rainbow.
right. That would be hilarious though, if it like the bombers coming over like Tehran, and it's got strobe lights and it's going
Like a rave.
like a rave,
Tranny rave.
and then it's got sequins coming down and confetti when they drop the bombs. I don't know.
That's hilarious.
But that's the future, and
I don't know. I know that
that's what we'll export. If we find somebody that's pro-Western, you can guarantee they're going to be setting up a DEI in Iran, and they're going to be having these LGBTQ radical agendas, all this new wave feminism and everything.
Gay Sesame Street.
Yeah, and we got to get Seth. Elmo has to be there
Elmo
too, for sure.
Non-binary Elmo.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it goes back to creating the boogeyman, and in all reality, that they're not a threat to us. They're not. We have these two huge oceans. If we would actually try to get along with people and to dominate through trade, I think that we would be much better off than printing a bunch of monopoly money, issuing fake debt, in IOUs and exporting bombs and warfare. That's America first to me. That's why I supported Donald Trump. He was very critical, of nation building and regime change and getting involved in foreign conflicts. And then now it's like, seems to be a 180. I mean, to be honest, like, I don't know.
I did see a video surface this morning actually of I think this is like when he was running back in 15, or maybe it was like right after he became president. But it was like a before and after of like where he's at now. He's obviously very pro-war, but back then, he was calling out opponents for the Iraq war, like how they supported the Iraq war. And he used to really hate Senator Lindsey Graham. You guys remember that? Like,
Yep.
Trump went hard on Lindsey Graham.
Now they're best buds.
Yeah, now they're all, and so, as the saying goes, politics makes for strange bedfellows. So, what's really that 180 shift as a result of? Is it because he's had an ideology change? Is it because maybe he's gotten in there and experience has taught him something? What would you guys speculate on that?
Ricardo.
I'll follow up on 2 points. As far as Trump's past, Trump has been consistent in saying that he would bomb Iran into the Stone Age for a decade now. This isn't a new concept for Trump. I think the misconception is that I'm anti-war. The wars of the 2000s were obviously failures, and they were forever wars. But I don't think being America first is anti-war. I think it's again, profiteering wars, ongoing wars, where this is more of, I'm expecting it to be just a get in and get out situation. Going back to Cody's point about the idea of this being a recurring theme of these people are going to destroy us or evil. I think this is a scenario of the boy that cried wolf. I think we've had all these terrible engagements by our government for so long that were obviously unwarranted, that this one is actually warranted, but people are exhausted by, we just got out of Afghanistan by the debacle under Biden a few years ago. And I think we're just, we have fatigue from it, but I think this is the one that we should have been in 20 years ago is Iran. And I say that because if you actually study the, who the Iranians are, they're Shias, and their philosophy is they're awaiting the Mahdi, the 12th Imam. So their philosophy is the more they can bring on, kind of going back to what Robert talked about at the Pentagon, the allegations that we're trying to bring on the Battle of Armageddon. That is their belief system. That's the core of who they are as far as their government, their theocracy, is they think if they can take the world and spin it into chaos and bring all this warfare, that the 12th Imam will come back. And they say they've been waiting on him since 900 AD. They're waiting on his return, and he's out there. He's waiting for the Battle of Armageddon. So they're trying to bring on chaos and death, and that's why they fund all these terrorist organizations. Their number one enemy is Israel, but they call Israel little Satan, and they call us big Satan. So I don't know if it's an issue that we can just go back to our side of the ocean and say we'll leave these guys alone. I don't disagree that we probably are antagonistic because we're allies with their biggest regional rival, which is Israel.
You don't think Israel's been antagonistic in
Oh
that
no,
whole
I
entire
100% agree. 100% agree.
1948, kicking, no,
100% agree.
Man. You know better than that.
No, I 100% agree. But I'm just talking about who Iran is as a country. I don't think that we can escape this. I don't think it's going to be just like we couldn't escape. Well, I mean, we probably could have escaped World War II, but I don't think it's something that's not going to come to our shores eventually, anyway. And I could be completely wrong. I mean, it could completely be based on our allegiance with the government of Israel, propping them up, supplying them with arms. But at the same time, if you got these people want to own the Islamic State and they want a caliphate and they want the 12th Imam to come back, and they don't believe that Christians have a right to exist, and undeniably we're a Christian nation. We're in their crosshairs eventually anyway. If we weren't in the Middle East, we'd be in their crosshairs. So we're in the middle of a multi-millennial conflict that I think is kind of inescapable.
Robert?
That brings me up. Jay, are you able to bring up that article? what Pete Hegseth said about Trump being anointed?
Yeah, start talking. I'll bring it up.
So um, this is really interesting because Pete Hegseth, I don't know if y'all have ever seen, like, in his workout pictures, he's got like a Crusader cross tattooed on him. Like, the guy, he is a pretty staunch Christian conservative guy. And I think, he probably thinks that this is a moral obligation of his as the Secretary of War. But Jay's going to pull up this article where allegedly Hegseth says that Trump was anointed by Jesus. What do y'all think about that? I mean, that's a pretty big claim.
It sounds like some cult shit to me. I don't know.
It's disgusting to me, these federal politician assholes who try to beat the war drums, but is their ass out on the front lines? Are they going on these missions? Are they putting their life on the line, or their son or daughter? No. So if it does spiral out, and I know the three of you have kind of poo-pooed that notion, but if the politicians were able to control warfare and what happens, then the history of mankind would be quite different. Many times things spiral out, and it's kind of under that chaos theory. You never know what is going to happen. And you've got these people that they're not going to have to give up anything, but yet they want potentially you to. And it's not like the old days where our leaders had a sense of chivalry, of honor, of valor. That's why if you research the kings of old in Europe, they would go and fight. So if the English were fighting the French in Normandy in the 12th century, the King of England would be leading the charge, and the King of France would be there at the front fighting for his people. And even up in the history of this formerly great nation that we live in, that we call the United States of America, if you look at the rosters of the American Civil War units, typically they would start out and they would raise a regiment in, let's say, Marion, and the mayor, the leader, would form it, and he would serve as major or colonel, whatever designation he would have. And you had all the elite that would go off and fight, and typically they would lead the charges themselves. So we still had that notion of chivalry, of valor, of honor, of self-sacrifice. The thought that if I'm going to order somebody on this charge, then by God, I'm going to lead it myself. And if I die, then that's the Lord's will. But we don't have that. We have this.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting to me. It really is.
That's a great point. I mean, to follow up on that, I would also say I really feel like we have a lot of great pastors across this country that are in it for the right reasons, but you also have people, just like in any profession, you have pastors that are not in it for the right reasons. But if you remember, do you remember the movie The Patriot, Mel Gibson, and the pastor in the movie, he takes up arms, and all the people in the town, they're like, "Pastor, where are you going?" And he says, "Sometimes a shepherd has to tend to his flock." Like, I just love that one-liner. And like, that sticks out to me because you know what? That did happen in the Revolutionary War, where we even had our shepherds going out there on the front line and fighting off the wolves, as they would say. But now, like, we've gotten to this like passive Christianity that I don't think is biblical. We've weakened our men. Our men are not masculine anymore. The average testosterone of men today is like a third of what our grandfathers was. We're just weak. And if we don't have like strong spiritual leaders in our communities helping shape these men, these boys into young men, and to know what it takes to be that leader that you're referring to, Cody, that somebody that goes out and is in the trenches. If you're a leader, that's what you're called to be. You're called to be out front. You're not called to be, leading from behind. I don't, at least that's my perspective on leadership. So I fully agree with you. I think it's a combination of things. Our politicians have gotten weak, and there's many of them that have sold us out. We have pastors that, they just want to preach feel good messages and collect tithes and offering, and then there's no substance there. What are we doing to really impact our communities? And I mean, I could go on that one all day, but I agree.
No, that's a great point. And it's something that people really need to think about and reflect on from a cultural standpoint. Don't you think, Richard?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Jay, did you get you got that up, that image? Yeah, that was old Hegseth. I don't know. All we can do is we can pray for cooler heads to prevail at moments of consequence, and that whatever is achieved actually ends up benefiting the interests of the people of the United States. And cross your fingers, say your prayers. I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. I mean, I'm not some pinko, liberal out there flashing the peace sign and everything, but I'm not in favor of wars that don't benefit us. And there's been so many of them over the last century and a half in particular, that if people really knew their history, which Americans in particular are so horribly ignorant of history, they would sit there and question a lot of things. And that's pretty much where I'm at. If it's a genuine threat, if it's something where you have to fight, then it's no holds barred. It's scorched earth tactics. It's just like William Tecumseh Sherman in the Civil War, burning his way to the coast. And he took a lot of heat for that.
Right.
But he said, war's awful. What can you say? And war is hell, I think, is what he said. So that's pretty much where I am. I'm on old W.T. Sherman's philosophy that if we have to go to war, then we go all in. We go all out, and we do whatever's necessary to win quickly, get it over with, and accomplish our objectives. And I just don't know that this was really thought out. Maybe it was, and I've admitted, even in the last episode we had this conversation, the geopolitical, the threat to the dollar's global reserve currency status, that's huge. I've been talking about that, writing about that for years. But how did he get to that point? It got to that point because we have a hopelessly corrupt Federal Reserve System, and we have a hopelessly corrupt federal government that just spends on big government and on the welfare state. Well, if we're real conservatives, and there ain't one out of a million in this country that would fit that definition, then we should be advocating for the destruction of big government, of the welfare state, of spending, of the Federal Reserve, going back to the system that existed in this country when we were the most prosperous, when we were the most free.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're free? People out in the listening audience? You have all these surveillance systems. Every single aspect of your life is documented, is tracked. The government shut us down and pretty much did everything short of forcing, holding people down and giving them an experimental mRNA jab that is
Right.
likely to take years off their life expectancy, scaring people, forcing them to wear chin diapers. Do we live in a free country? Now they're putting all these damn data centers everywhere that are
Yeah.
just draining all of our resources, our water, millions and millions and millions of gallons, and polluting our aquifers, our waterways, our tributaries. And you got the state of Ohio, the head of the EPA. There's a pending permit for these hyperscale data centers that they want to put all over the formerly fruited plains of this Buckeye State. It says, we know that this is toxic. You know, this is harmful. But because it serves a social and an economic development purpose, we're going to let you pollute Ohio's waterways. Go right ahead. You know, that's the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency
Right.
for the state of
Mhm.
Ohio, is saying that. They're not looking out for you.
They're a
It's
bureaucratic
like
arm of
George
the
Carlin
government.
said, it's a big club, and
Yeah,
you
right.
ain't in it.
They're there to protect other business interests. They form monopolies, is what they do. That's what regulatory agencies do. They'll drive small guys out of business and then protect these giant corporations.
Yeah. Well, look what they did during COVID with, they were basically pushing everybody into Walmart and shutting down all the little guys.
Right.
I mean, not very many shops and restaurants made it through that period.
No, it didn't. And look at all of the lingering impacts of that, all the inflation that for years, I mean, they started quantitative easing policy, which I don't want to bore everybody to death, but basically what that is the government gets its money from taxes and the issuance of IOUs, or
Right.
promise to repay with interest at a future date if you give them money now. So those are in the form of U.S. Treasury bonds. And that's pretty much the two main ways that the federal government funds itself. So
Right.
in 08, when we had, that was a very significant, it was called the Great Recession, but it could have been much, much, much more. And in reality, it was. Look at where we're at today. Look at the
Right.
amount of inflation, how much prices have gone up across the board for everything since 2008. And that just went into hyperdrive during COVID. So look at lingering price increases that we're dealing with. Look at our municipal governments, county governments, city governments. They're running on budget increases, and they were getting that COVID money. Again, it's all inflationary. They were getting that for pretty much the entire COVID madness time. And now those funds have been shut off. But we're left paying the bill. Price increases in real estate, you
Mhm.
know, just in a couple years, 30, 40, 50% increase, 60% increase in a couple of years. And now Ohioans are finally aware of that and are sick and tired of it and are seeking a constitutional amendment ballot initiative to axe the tax. But this is all the policies that trickled down. You want to talk about trickle down economics? The Federal Reserve and the spending, the profligate spending of the federal government, that's the number one when it comes to trickle down bullshit. Anyone?
The worst part of it is that they not only quadrupled the M2 at at the beginning of COVID, the onset, and inflated the currency into insanity, but they lowered interest rates so low that it created artificial pressure in the housing market. So you've got a double-edged sword coming into the housing market, and now you've got all these people stuck with rates they can never get out of again because they were artificially low. I mean, there's people that have 2.75% or 3% rate on mortgages and then the market was just driven up by fake money, which, that inflation it's just a tax is what it is. It's a tax that is completely hidden. It's just taking your money in your pocket.
The largest tax increase. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But nobody ever frames it that way. Well, some people do.
If
you like this kind of this discussion on finance and economics, I'll refer you to Peter Schiff is a good one to check out. That's SCHIFF. He does a YouTube channel. There's also, if you really want to get into some other commentators, the Maverick of Wall Street is another good one. Who's that other guy there's a couple other ones. I'm going blank here, but
Jim Cramer.
I learned a lot about that situation because that's why we are where we are today. It's government spending. And again, when they print money through the Federal Reserve, which is a private group of banking elite or banks, and then they use that printed money, that monopoly money that has no intrinsic value. It's completely fiat. It's like monopoly money to go and buy those IOUs, those treasury bonds. And that's what they did through quantitative easing, suppressing the interest rates so that the yield on the 10-year treasury was kept low because Fed's printing the money and going and buying the debt that's issued by the U.S. Treasury for years and years, billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And it was completely irresponsible.
To tie that back in, that's also why we have BRICS today, like you were saying, because we've been exporting all of our debt to these other nations, and they don't want anything of our currency. But when we left World War II, we had all the gold. They didn't have a choice when we through the IMF. And then, China was able to enter the IMF and get in the basket of currency in, I think, 2002 or 3 or something like that. And since then, they've been run away. They've been stockpiling gold. They started BRICS. They've been pulling all these nations in to make a competitor for the dollar. And that's really where this global power structure is not. It's in money really more than it is military, but the military is the mechanism to control it. And that's why I say, to me, this is a big geopolitical maneuver. But it does go back to the Federal Reserve. If we didn't have terrible money, we weren't exporting that debt. The Chinese wouldn't have the motivation that they do to go around our money and creating our currency.
No, and like I said, conservatives, freedom-loving Americans, red-blooded Americans should want to fix our country. Our country is in horrible shape. So just because we have arguably, I don't even know how true that is, this military supremacy. I mean, it's yet to be seen, really, to be honest. Now they're talking about those drones that you mentioned are exhausting all the missile defense systems and stuff. So the $20,000 drone, can take out a several or however many $1 million missile, and that don't last very long because, again, our productive capacity has pretty well been depleted, not only from just a factory like site location perspective and how many of those places we have in this country, but a skilled workforce. We have a crisis of competency in this country. We don't have a whole lot of people that can do much of anything. And that's just reality. Yeah, it's not World War II where everybody was. Yeah, we're not. We're not.
I think that's where the America First movement, I think that's the big thing that one of the reasons I support tariffs as a person wouldn't generally is those Section 232 tariffs, which are really designed for national defense. The Chinese are very, very strategic in what they're doing. They're pulling out our resources so we can't compete in global warfare. And that's in metal production, steel. The last refinery in the UK was almost bankrupted. It was bought out by the Chinese. They had to nationalize it less than a year ago because that's how the Chinese maneuvers. They go into countries, they dump their cheap steel, they dump their cheap aluminum, and then they drive out the local competitors, and then they buy up the mills and close them, and then they're the ones sitting on all the wartime production. And I think that's the big reason that, we'll see a increase in prices and things that have steel and aluminum in them because we have tariffs on those now. But we have to have those things for our national defense because right now China can build like 10 times the amount of naval vessels we can.
Right.
So we don't have a way to compete if we don't bring these things back and, like Cody said, make a workforce that's capable of building those things again.
Robert?
No, those are all great points. I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head. And if we look at historically what this trajectory is that we've been on, it started with the Fed that really started to erode our institutional framework and our trust. And then it kind of really starts to accelerate socially, religiously, and all those contexts in the 60s and 70s with the sexual and cultural revolutions. And then that's when we see the influx of, drugs, all of the mind control drugs that they was taking, or LSD, whatever you want to call it. Marijuana always had a huge influx. And then not long after that is in the 80s is when we saw cocaine really spike. And then, in the last 15 years, it's been heroin and fentanyl. And so if you look at that, going all the way back to the 60s, what's happened since then? Our families have degraded. How many kids are growing up in single parent homes now? They don't even know their dad, let alone having a stepmom and a stepdad. They don't even know their parents half the time. So, it's almost like, was this a planned, degradation of our society? And I know Jay wanted to talk about the narco terrorism, and all the stuff that is going on. And what country is that, Jay, that we just did some ops in?
Oh, Ecuador. Ecuador, and apparently the United States intelligence apparatus and special forces are doing some kind of a ground operation in Ecuador, but the United States claims that intelligence and special forces are not going to be involved in the ground operations. Anybody that knows anything about intelligence and special forces knows that's all bullshit. But I will say that Marion Watts, and I think that everybody at this table here, if they can justify it and they can prove that these are narco terrorists, and we know that it's coming in from China and the Middle East and the precursors and all that stuff, we can prove that. Mr. Maltz Sr., former DEA, I'm a big fan of his. He's pretty awesome. Unfiltered guy. He'll tell you how it is. We've done several things on the narco terrorism and the precursors being imported. I say bomb the shit out of them. Like, we got to stop the pipeline. These people in the United States that are mules, that are not U.S. citizens, they need to be dealt with harshly. We need to come up with solutions for the addicted, as well as the people that we had a good conversation going in one of our articles from this morning with, I believe it's one of Pastor Rogers' congregation. She was concerned about our stance on the sentencing of a young man from Marion. And we operated inside of organized criminal rings for several years. And you can recognize an addict, or what I call a low-level dealer, because that's usually what they are. These people in these bigger cities come down and they live in their houses. They change operations every so often to keep the police off keel. And it's all supplied from this higher end pipeline down to the middlemen and the higher traffickers. And it's easy to tell the difference between an addict, a mid-level dealer, a supplier, and an international trafficker, and somebody that's going across borders. And I'm sorry, guys, but when they catch you with hundreds of grams of fentanyl and, meth and the whole 9 yards, and you're using the mail, and it's not the first charge, I mean, sorry, but they're going to have to be dealt with. And I know that some people don't like the sentences that are being handed down, but I could probably sit here for 2 hours and read off the names of people that we've known personally that we lost. When I came home in 2014 to volunteer for the operations that I'm talking about, we had to stop going to funerals because it was so often
Yeah.
that we just couldn't operate. Like, it was, number one, it was a safety concern because, you know, we're doing what we were doing, but number two, it was a mental problem for us, and we had to be clear headed to do this. And
Yeah.
it was all uh a learning thing. But I mean, I really support the US military using whatever they've got
Yeah.
and the intelligence apparatus to stop these pipelines. Will it do any good? Do you guys think it will do any good? I think it would do some good.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Jay. Until like it hits home, like some people just won't understand like how guys like us can really support these actions because these drugs have been pouring into our country for decades, and not a single president has done anything. And God bless him. I'm a big fan of President Reagan, but President
Right.
Reagan didn't really do anything to, just say no does not do anything to stop drugs. So I'm a big fan of what's going on in the Western Hemisphere. I'm a huge fan of it because I've personally seen what it's done to families. And these drugs are no joke. I mean, what Cody was talking about with the shutdown and COVID. I mean, we know how easy is it that they can make a narco weapon or a bio weapon. I mean, you just never know what stuff's coming across our borders. And if we don't have secure borders, I know it was like another point we wanted to talk about tonight, but if you don't have secure borders, you don't have a nation. And if you
Right.
have drugs pouring into your country and it's destroying families, and you don't have strong families, that's going to destroy your nation because strong families are the backbone of this country. So for all those reasons, I'm 100% in support of those operations in Ecuador. I'm in support of all the operations in the Caribbean. Now, to your point, Jay, and this is the last thing, and I'll shut up. With the lady that was saying, Grogan's sentencing of that gentleman was too harsh. Maybe so. Maybe he was the middleman. I don't really know. I didn't really see all the details. But at some point we do have to get assertive and bring the hammer down on some of these guys because who's to say that what he was involved in didn't have an effect and it did kill some families. Well, what would you say to those families? Well, he was just the middleman, and so let's let him off. That's going to be a tough sell to those families that's burying
Right.
their family members.
Right.
So again, going back to his Iran stance, I think we have to have a tough president. I don't always agree with Trump, but I agree that we need somebody that's strong in that office and that's really just going to get some stuff done.
This was
Yes.
all done to us. I got to interject here.
Right.
This was all deliberate, basically a result of the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s, turning our civilization and our culture here at home upside down and completely going away from traditional values and a reliance on the self, the individual, instead of the collective, and government, instead of advocating for small government and personal responsibility and sovereignty. It was big government and handouts, but all the while, open the borders in an ever increasing amount, allow these types of drugs and poisons to pour into our country, completely turning its back on the family and of faith and things that actually are indicative of a sustainable civilization. We're dying off. We're dying off. Look at the birth rates. We're being poisoned with Frankenstein foods and our water to where our fertility, and like Robert said earlier, testosterone levels have declined, estrogen and different hormone levels just pervade everything because instead of growing real food, everything's processed and chemical based that has that impact. Um, I I don't believe that if the elite, if the people that truly rule this country wanted to shut down the borders, wanted to secure them, they could do it in an instant. If they wanted to dispatch or deport every single cartel member, every single narco operator in this country, they could do it in an instant. They did it very, very efficiently prior to the 1960s. Look up Eisenhower's Operation Wetback.
Right.
If you want to learn about what he did. And we had pretty much no immigration from 1924 until 1965. So it can be done. And now we live in the surveillance state. They know more about you. Every single aspect of your life is being documented and tracked.
Right.
So it's the same thing for these assholes that are destroying our civilization.
But why? Why?
Huh?
Why?
Why are they allowing
That's the
this?
question. What's the grand conspiracy? So why
To destroy us.
What? But who?
Right.
But who?
Yeah.
Why? What's the motive? Who wants to destroy us, and what's the benefit of that? That's the question.
Well, I mean, you can go down a number of rabbit holes with that. One I touched on last conversation, last show. There's that, but then there's also, the elite. We're having, not to be sidetracked here. You brought it up, Richard, so I'm blaming you.
Intentionally, yeah.
Yeah. So we're hearing about all these potential job losses with artificial intelligence. So AI is going to take your job. And that's been whispered and talked about for last decade, let's say. If you really want to watch an interesting podcast, not quite as good as the Watchmen'S report, obviously, but check out Joe Rogan's interview with Elon Musk from, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. Time flies. I don't know what the date stamp was on that, but specifically the conversation that he gets into about artificial intelligence and where the world is headed with that. And Elon, at the time during that interview, identifies it as the largest threat to mankind.
Right.
And discussion, people are now, you're hearing more and more about it. It's almost like the automation of a lot of the industrial jobs and things like that, having robotics and whatnot that took away assembly line jobs at Ford or whatever.
Yeah.
If that's true, then what happens to us? So we lose our jobs. Well, if you listen to a lot of what these elite proponents say, they advocate for it under this idea that it's going to be a new renaissance. We're going to have the masses are going to have all this leisure time. And during that leisure time, they're going to be able to create works of art and to innovate, think about things. It's going to be a new golden age for people. Do you really think that that's what they're going to? One, do you really think that the American people, if they lose their jobs, the average American who only thinks hand to mouth most of the time and who, knuckle dragging down the aisleways of Walmart, breathing through their mouth, all the while, wearing sweatpants that have juicy on the ass. Like, you really think that they're going to be like, I'm going to create the 21st century version of Michelangelo's David, and it's going to be at the Louvre on display the following year? No, that is not going to happen. And do you really think that the elite are going to want the liability of having billions of idle liabilities, really, on the books? No, they're not. Then you can look into the Georgia Guidestones and the elites plan to parse down the global population to like 500 million. You can look into Agenda 2030 and some of these other plans on centralizing resources into major metropolitan areas, 15-minute cities. This is stuff they all talk about. It's not conspiracy. Like, they talk about it.
Right.
Now, whether or not it'll happen is another thing. But not being aware of the discussions by these elite sons of bitches is probably not very smart on our part, especially when we are seeing artificial intelligence explode
Right.
in prevalence. Richard.
I'm just listening. I'm on board with everything you've said.
Did I miss anything?
I don't really think so. I guess the overarching question is, is this all going on at Bilderberg? Is it going on at the Bohemian Grove? Is this, even more elite group of people that's, is this just on the Lolita Express, the Epstein Island? Where are they cooking these ideas up? We don't want to do this to ourselves, but we seem to be implementing it somehow. We're the ones that are just kind of marching off like slaughter. And if you've ever been around livestock, they're not very smart. That's kind of how the West is going. But obviously, we are the roadblock to this plan, the West, and in particular Americans. We've got this mass amount of guns. We've got rebel blood in our, and I don't mean Confederate rebel blood. I just mean rebel blood in general, because that's our stock is. We're from a group of people that rebelled against the crown, and every war we fought against tyrants. So it's in our blood nature to do that. So we are, I think, the front line of that. And I think we can't be beaten kinetically, and even the people, without the government. And I think we have to be dismantled societally, like you guys were saying. I think going back to the Federal Reserve, that's the head of the snake. All of the bad geopolitical policy, all these enemy states that we propped up and then decided to fight in the last 50 years or 60, 70 years after World War II, all of that was funded by the Federal Reserve. Everything you see bad today, every welfare program is funded by the Federal Reserve. Everything that's going on bad, if you cut off the Federal Reserve, you cut off the money to 90% of the problems in the world today. So it's a big multifaceted thing. But I do think it's moving towards that. Is you don't keep livestock that doesn't serve you any longer, and that's, almost where we are today with approaching 10 billion people here. And obviously they don't need our bodies anymore in the near future. So where do we go?
No, and what's scary, Richard, is the documented evidence that in Ukraine, in the Donbass, eastern provinces, you had U.S. government-funded labs that were researching genetic-based bioweapons. And COVID itself had a genetic component to it. Now, you can believe that or not, but there are Dr. McCullough and a good number. Elon Musk himself, you think Elon's crazy or not, but he discussed it. He shared the research. So there were different ethnicities that would have a more severe or a less severe reaction to COVID. And it's interesting if you look at who those ethnicities are that had the least severe and who had the most severe. But when the Russians moved in to eastern Ukraine and the Donbass, and they found these U.S. funded labs, they were creating any number of bioweapons that were specifically targeted based on DNA, ethnicity. So that's pretty sick and disturbing. So they could release something that wipes out a population with only a certain heritage or genetic marker.
Right.
And why are we researching that kind of stuff? And interestingly enough, a lot of the targets, at least there, we know other allegations of what was going on in the Wuhan labs in China, where COVID itself was likely developed. But they were targeting European ancestry. Richard, have you heard any of that? I'm sure you have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think whether you believe that conspiracy, obviously, as we have to call it, because the mainstream media hasn't agreed with it yet, but the data proves it, because we know where it had the most causal effect on people, and it's definitely in that people group. So yeah, I mean, even if again, you could say maybe it was unintentional, but that's definitely the outcome, and that's definitely what my understanding is what has been found. I agree with what you're saying there.
Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. As somebody who really suffered from COVID-19 unexpectedly and had no idea why I got it, I'm very angry at my government for lying to us about this and then gaslighting us and saying that masks work, and that this 6-foot distance works, and shutting down our churches, making restaurants and businesses close down. And then the audacity of the lady who did that here in the state of Ohio, she thinks she can run for governor. Like, my mind is just blown that people think this is okay. And these people that want to talk about Trump being this dictator and warmonger, why are you not giving the same kind of accusation to Amy Acton? I mean, how do you get more dictatorship than closing everything down?
That's right.
I mean, you just don't. And I fear for my kids, because, and that's if we even make it to when they become adults. I mean, just the way we're going down an unsustainable path. I think we've done a great job tonight, guys. We've hit on everything, but it's so true, because it's been this perfect storm, and these elites know how to play the game. One thing I would say too, Cody, going back to your point about how these leaders used to be men. They used to lead from the front. They would go to war. But at the same time, bad men and evil leaders have learned and honed their craft over thousands of years. These elite families that have passed down their knowledge to their sons and their daughters on how to manipulate societies and how to control them. How do you keep them in check?
They're all related, by the way.
Yeah, they are. They are. So again, I know this all sounds like conspiracy, folks, but like Cody said, this is stuff that they've openly talked about in their elite forums, and we're just regurgitating that to you tonight. So the number one thing is, I guess, we've talked about the problem. What's the solution? And I think the solution is getting back to our roots, as cheesy as that might sound, but going back to the way our founding fathers did it, going back to our biblical roots. We are Christian men here on this show, getting back to our biblical foundations and being strong Christian men, strong Christian families is the starting point. I don't want to hijack the show with that preaching message. I could go on, but if we don't get back to truth, then we're doomed to fail.
Jay?
I mean, I definitely agree with all that. And I can say that I saw the Terminator movies and it didn't go well. There's that, but infiltration's a big thing with me. Like, you guys know how much I love that subject. And I know that the stats currently are that we have several million people who they consider possible combatants. That's a hell of an army. So now you got people inside the nation who are infiltrating in the nation. You got people who are obviously trying to infiltrate the government. We talked about the dual citizenship problem. We've got all this crazy going on with genetic testing of biological warfare weapons. Let's call it what it is. it's just a whole shit show of crazy and what's going to happen. When's it going to explode and what's going to happen when it explodes? And I think that we need to get, like Robert just said, get back to our roots, raise strong families with values. We are the United States of America. I don't discourage immigration at all. What I do discourage is illegal immigration and unvetted immigration. There's a whole host of problems that come with that. Everything from economic problems to disease to idiots coming over here that want to kill our people and rape people and be idiots and sell drugs and do whatever they want. And we got to stop it, period. Like, it's out of control.
We need
I
a
won't keep ranting.
moratorium on all immigration.
Right.
All immigration. We had such in place pretty much from 1924 to 1965, and then the Hart-Celler Act was stupidly passed. Research those guys if you want to see another connection there with one of the drafters of that legislation. And it was open the floodgates, and we went from pretty much a homogenous population to whatever the hell we are today. Again, deliberate action by a political elite, a group of people who hate you, who hate me, and want to see our destruction. Sorry, but that's just how it is. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot going on, and I agree with you, Jay, as far as Robert's question. You have to exercise your mind. You have people that, well, I got to hit the gym, man. I got to hit the gym. Not that we have a whole lot of that, but there are certain people that are like that. And they think about exercising their bodies, toning their bodies. Tone your mind. Exercise your mind.
Yeah, read a book. Right.
Think freely. If somebody says something, don't just accept it as truth because it's some authority, some government official coming out and giving a press release or making a statement, or the Associated Press or somebody on some news station, or your professor if you're in college, your teacher if you're in high school. Question, think, critically analyze everything. If you do that, then you'll truly be free. You may realize that you live in a cage and that you're truly imprisoned, but your mind itself will be free. And for more on that topic, at least from a popular culture perspective, check out the Matrix movies. I love those, and they're so true. Richard, are you a fan of the Matrix flicks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
figured you would be. So, and that's how I feel. Like, you talk about impacting people, getting through to people. So, in the Matrix, I'm not going to spoil the movie for you guys, those of you in the audience who haven't seen it, but the real world has been destroyed. So they live in a consciousness that is within a computerized matrix. So in their minds, everybody thinks that that's reality, but it's not. And when somebody realizes that that's in fact the case, then they can get out of that computer program, basically. But then they're in the world, which is destroyed. It sucks. So they go in and they try to accomplish this mission, maybe convince some more people along the way that are living in the Matrix. They give them knowledge, tell them it's all bullshit. But there's a line in there where the protagonist, Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, is getting trained by oh God, what's that fellow's name?
Morpheus,
Yeah, Morpheus, but who's the actor?
Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne, yeah. And Morpheus, or Lawrence Fishburne's character, says, these people aren't ready to learn the truth. They'll fight you. They'll seek your destruction. They'll defend the Matrix. They'll defend the lie. And because they're so programmed that you can't get through to them. And that's really what most people, they're living in the Matrix. You can't get through to them. They've been programmed. They're really victims. You can sit here and you can condemn them, you can criticize them. You got to feel sorry for them. These are people who, under different circumstances, probably would be leading much different lives. They would be achieving, they would be accomplishing in a free system, a small government system, a system where they're not kept in chains. They would be allowed to fly. But that's not the system that we live in, and they're victimized. It's sad, but you do the best to try to reach people, to try to have an impact, and to try to always exercise your own mind. So, any other topics of discussion, comments, anything, fellas? I mean, we did go through a wide variety of topics here on the Watchmen's Report tonight, and it's always a good discussion. And again, you may disagree. Like we disagree on the issue of the Iran war, conflict, engagement, whatever they want to call it. But that's what it's all about. You have to be willing to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And not condemn the other
Yeah, we got to
person.
get away from that. Just because we don't agree with something or somebody doesn't mean that we're enemies. Like, we got to stop that shit. That's craziness.
Agreed. All right, fellas. Well, if you're done, then I'm done. Anybody, last call for drinks here at the old bar? No? All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. I don't think we have any episodes scheduled for the remainder of this week. Next week, who do
We
we
got
got?
Pam on next week on the 11th, I think. Yeah, the 11th.
Pam Larkin, Marion City.
He's fired up
Councilwoman,
too, so that should be interesting.
representing the second ward. So that'll be a good conversation regarding Marion's ongoing water contamination crisis that keeps getting brushed under the rug by Aqua Ohio. So be sure to tune in to that show. We might have Tim Mooney coming on. Tim is running for Marion County Commissioner in the Republican primary. I'm waiting on him to get back with me. He may not want to come on. I don't know. He says he does, but we'll see. So,
Didn't he
Tim,
get like ambushed or something recently? Some kind of crazy went on.
huh?
Didn't he have some kind of problems with something recently?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, I thought he was on another. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah, no, I don't think Tim's done any media.
Oh, that was. Never mind. I'm half
in the
awake.
area.
Don't mind me.
But hopefully we'll get him confirmed to be on the show. It's nice to be able to chat with some of these candidates, learn a little bit more about them, so that you're not just going in to vote and you have no clue where they stand, who they are. that system is just so highly flawed. I mean, it
Right.
really is. It's so stupid.
That's what started us, right?
Have
That's
universal
why
suffrage and nobody
we
knows
came
shit
up so
about
fast.
anything.
If you
So,
remember, we were discussing coming up, and the big driver for us coming up so fast was people they don't know their officials. Like, they need to know these people and the candidates, and it's been pretty cool, actually.
yeah, again, that's increasing your knowledge. It's exercising your mind, getting to know, thinking about what their positions are, what your positions are, what you would like to see done. That's the only way it works, you know. So maybe Tim Mooney. If not, probably have another national or state topic show. So be sure to check it out. Always look on our Facebook page. Go to marionwatch.com. We're on YouTube, on Rumble. Like, share, get that shit out. Get more of these people. You got to think of yourself as like Neo and Morpheus. Start dropping those red pills left and right, bringing in people into the fold, freeing their minds. That's what we want to do on the Watchmen's Report. So
Right.
help us out. And until next time, I'm Cody Igley for Jason Foreman, Robert Landon, and Richard McDonald. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Sound the alarm! To arms! They are here!